We're in Scarsdale, New York, and boy, what a beautiful area. One of the things, though, is they got a whole lot of water. There's streams running through the back of this property, and the customer had explained to me water would actually fill up all the way from the stream right to the house, which is an entirely different thing than we fixed. But he said, by the time I got halfway up here, his basement would flood. So we went in, we took a look, and we found that there was another system in there from another company that wasn't anywhere near the match that was necessary in order to get this basement dry. So we took an entirely different approach. I think you're really gonna like some of the stuff we're gonna show you, because if you do have a wet basement, what we're gonna go through is gonna keep you from making a colossal mistake. We're well underway with our prep to get this job started. As you can see, we have plastic all the way around all sides of the stairs, including the face. So even if we do get a little bit of dust, none of it is going to be able to get upstairs. Dust suppression is very, very important to us. We do it on our hammer with our Enviro boot, which creates suction right at the point of contact. That's where the bit of the hammer actually hits the floor. We suck it up and we run that through a HEPA vacuum cleaner, which takes out all of the dust. We also have a pool table that's completely covered with plastic. We've covered the walls. We have electronics. And the entire floor, this had beautiful, beautiful carpeting on it. We've pulled the floor back that 3 feet that we need in order to work, and then we've covered it completely with plastic and drop cloths. We're real close to getting started. The prep is just about done. It's a large basement, 148 linear feet of normal, completely finished basement, and another 57 feet of crawl space, which was just encapsulated. This is the dimple board used as part of the process to encapsulate a crawl space. We had to remove this too because they did nothing for waterproofing, so this had to get completely torn out. Just another miss. Now we're in the crawl space. The approach here by the other company was just to encapsulate it. No waterproofing was done, but they got water. So that's really what you have to watch for. If it's a dampness issue and you were going to go really on the low end, you would do encapsulation and then some type of dehumidification. Both of those in this particular case turned out to be a disaster. They encapsulated in an area that gets water, so they still had water underneath the encapsulation, and water would still get into the main part of the house. So what they tried to do to deal with that is they got dehumidification. Another thing you really got to watch out for, because there's knockoffs that are made all over the place. This particular one was a knockoff of an American-made one, which was very effective. The knockoff was nowhere near as effective. It was made in China, and the owner smelled a very strong smoke coming upstairs, and they were just lucky enough to be home, came down, and they opened up this crawl space to actually see the dehumidifier with flames coming out of the side of it. It was on fire. The person's wife called the fire department. 2 full houses came to put it out, got them out of the house, and they weren't back in the house for 3.5 months, where they had to stay at a hotel. You really got to pay attention and not go for just the cheapest or the lowest cost approach to waterproofing your basement. What we used to say is the most expensive thing in the world is a cheap basement waterproofing job. As you can see with how many buckets and how much material we're taking out of here, this is actually what we had to remove in order to make a trench large enough to deal with the volume of water that was coming through here. The previous company just put up a liner that went down the wall, across the wall, and up the other side of a thin plastic, and then threw a dehumidifier in it. But if you look at, this is how much work needs to be done. Something sounds really simple and really easy on how to resolve a water problem. You might want to look somewhere else, or at least get 3 or 4 more estimates. That's what we always tell people. Get 3 or 4 more estimates, compare it to the results that you're going to get with us compared to what you get with another company. But this is the amount of work that's required in order to waterproof even a crawl space. These systems are notorious for not actually being a continuous run all the way around to where the pump is. This would be a corner piece. It would be sitting like this. In the corner, it would have cement on it about, anywhere from an inch, inch and a half or so. And then this piece would fit into the end like that. So when you took this apart and actually took the corner piece out, there's no bottom to it. So it's not a continuous run. What we deem these are overflow systems. So that this is sitting there, when the water gets high enough, it gets high. Instead of getting onto the floor, it's got room to go through here in order to get to the pump. Problem is, it's not a continuous flow for one thing. There's no pitch to this pipe, so the water just fills up. And like I said, it's an overflow system because it manages the water this close to critical, meaning this close to on top of the floor. It just doesn't happen. And we're talking about a basement that gets multiple feet of water. You have to approach it entirely different. You have to say, I have to put an enormous amount of pumping power here with an enormous amount of drainage to that pumping power in order to even have a chance at solving the problem. Well, we've even beefed up on that, so we're gonna be able to keep this basement completely dry. Every different basement waterproofing job tends to throw a dozen curveballs at you, and you gotta know how to deal with them. These folks have a stream in the back that overflows and water can come right up to the wall. They say it'll get this high or even this high or this high on the outside of the wall. And what we're gonna do in this particular case is we're gonna take our drain board, which normally only runs up to about here, and we're gonna take a wider strip out like this and bring it up. Any water that might come up through there would go run down through our drain board and get into our drainage system. And we have so much draining power in this particular system because of that threat that it would be easily handled. This is not what we normally do. This is surface water. We do groundwater, but in this particular situation, we're just going out of our way in order to give the homeowner just another level of security. The pumping power that you want to install when you're trying to solve a water problem, it has to match the water problem. It has to match the amount of volume that you're going to be addressing. The system that we just tore out, every bit of the pumping power is right here. And it's over in this corner. The way the drainage was set up is that it went all the way across this wall here, all the way across here, and continued down along here. This is our pumping station. That was not previously there. So their drainage just all going to that pump all the way over in that corner, continued on all the way through here to the point where it comes to a bathroom. But it stopped right here. And the reason it did is that there was all kinds of stuff that you had to work around in here that was very difficult. This is where it comes to where we talk about customizing every inch of a particular job specific to that particular foundation. That's what American Dry is really, really good at. So when we got here, sure, it wasn't great news for the customer, but we had to remove a whole lot of stuff and work around it. And in here is where their gas line comes in. And they just stopped. They wanted nothing to do with it, where we were able to take a smaller hammer, chip out all around it very delicately, and be able to put in an enormous amount of drainage without disrupting or harming any of the existing piping for the gas to come into the house. And then it came over into here, and this was a complete finished bathroom. It had a toilet with an ejector pump on it and a shower that covered this entire corner. The proper way to go about solving a water problem, whether you have a little bit of water or this particular house has an enormous amount of water, we routinely were told by the customer that he would get this much water in the basement. This thing didn't have a chance. It stopped there. It started back here. This whole area here where we have all kinds of sewer lines. Anytime that you have a sewer line that's going through the concrete, could be a avenue for the water to be able to get into the basement, completely ignored it out of didn't want to be inconvenient. Really bad approach. If you're going to resolve your water problem, sometimes inconvenience is part of the deal. So this whole thing was meticulously taken apart, and we put an enormous amount of pipe, and as you can see, stone. And over here, you can see the depth of our drainage compared to where theirs was, which was right here. Theirs was right up here within the depth of the floor, which meant the water had to fill up all the way to the bottom of the floor and completely surround the floor before one drop would pass through the particular type of system that was in here. Okay, so I'm coming out of the area where the bathroom was, where all the sewer lines were that we worked around, and we continued on, and we're following all the way down this outside wall here. Once again, here's our sump basket. This basket was not here, wasn't part of the prior system. So we're putting in that much more drainage, that much more pumping power. From that side going that way, the water had to travel through that small gutter to get all the way down that long wall, all the way across that other wall before it could ever get into the pump itself. The customer actually was talking about the breaker box and said the water was actually this high just underneath where the breakers started up into the box. So they get an enormous amount of water, knowing that you'd never, ever, ever rely on one pumping basket at the far end of your basement for a system that has no pitch on it to be able to transport that water over to the pump and effectively pump it out. And not just pump it out, but do it at a rate that stays ahead of the flooding. Now, the homeowner has flooded, I think, 3 or 4 times and has gotten finally a final verdict from the company that installed the system and said to them, you just get too much water. We can't handle it. Don't call us anymore. It's not what you're looking for. You have to make sure you have the right system for your particular type of foundation, and you better have enough pumping power to be able to handle the volume necessary to keep your basement dry. Heavy rains really inundate this entire area. We're actually at the low part of the street. The folks that we're working with right now, they really get an enormous amount. Standing here in front of the storm drain, on top of the lid that gets into the storm drain, this had collapsed several months ago, and then the town rebuilt it. Now, there's a pumping discharge system that goes around that empties into here, and then we're gonna be working our pumps to a similar type of setup where we're going to be getting the water over to the city storm drain, which now that they've fixed it, you know, we're hopeful that it's going to be able to handle a whole lot more water. Wow, what a job this has been. People get 4 to 5 feet of water in their basement. So getting the right company, installing the right system for your particular type of foundation is really important. We tore all this stuff out, and I don't know whether you're a fan of my videos or not, but if you've seen, we have piles and piles and piles of this stuff back at our yard that are just installed where they shouldn't have been installed. This particular type of foundation takes an entirely different approach in order to get the basement dry. There was a complete mismatch. They totally missed it. So we have them now. We finished up. They have the right amount of pumping power with the right amount of drainage, and it's going to keep that basement completely dry here in very, very wet Scarsdale, New York. If you found the video informative, then hit that like button and the notification. And if you could, hit the subscribe so you'll get our next video as soon as it comes out. But until then, enjoy your dry basement.